Hey everyone, in this episode we have a young guy on by the name of Joey. He also goes by Spilly, and man, he's got a heck of a story, and he has such good wisdom about himself. And the interesting part about this episode is that there's little nuggets throughout the episode where you hear him speak and you would think that he has a lot of sobriety time. He has just over 30 days, but he gets a lot into his treatment history, why he wasn't bought into the recovery process in the beginning, and why he is bought in now. And I think you'll find it pretty interesting on how his perspective changed on his sobriety. So I know you're going to enjoy this show. If you have any questions for us, you can reach us, info@realrecoverytalk.com. Enjoy the show. Here we are, Real Recovery Talk. I am your host, Tom Conrad. In today's episode, we've got Benjamin B.
What's happening, everyone?
How you doing, Ben?
I'm brain dead right now, Tom.
That's because you're a couple weeks out from this bodybuilding show.
Yes, sir. I'm Hans, and you are Franz, and we are here to get you pumped up. Is that what they say? What's the Saturday Night Live thing? Oh, dude, I just butchered it.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know anything about that, but
No, you don't remember that?
I can understand why you're brain dead, though.
Yeah.
It's 6:30 in the evening, and you've probably had, what, about 600 calories up to this point?
Probably. Some egg whites, some grilled chicken, and some green beans.
You did have a scoop of whey protein, you said.
Did.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Good. Hey, we have a guest here. Guest by the name of Joey or Jojo or Joe. Or if you want to get a little crazy, he also goes by Spilly.
Yes, sir.
What's up, Spilly?
Doing good, man. How you guys doing?
Good. Get that mic a little closer
All
to
right.
you.
Yep.
There you go. First things first, thank you for tuning in on the podcast app, whichever one that you choose to use. And thank you for watching on YouTube. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us. info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, it's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message. Right, Ben?
Yes, sir.
I got my boots on, Ben.
I wore like some kind of boots, too. These are like shoe boots, though.
Yeah, they're shoots.
Dude, I never wear high tops. It's kind of weirding me out. It's like, around my ankle.
Yeah.
Can't get used to it.
So it's for those of you that care, that are weather people, in South Florida right now, it's about, what, 60 degrees?
64.
Yeah, and people
freezing out.
It's freezing. Yeah, I got my jacket over there. Tomorrow I think it's going to be tomorrow it's going to be about the same temperature. But a week from today, another cold front's coming through supposedly, and the high is going to be like 55 or 50 or something like that.
Florida cold has a bite, though, because it's so humid and it's by the ocean. So, like, 50 here is like 20 in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think you're completely wrong, but makes sense in your head. So, anyways, first thing I want to do, Spilly, I'm going to refer to you as Spilly because I like that name.
All right.
You like sour candy?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
It's an addict thing, I think, right? Addicts generally like sour candy.
Right.
I like sour candy.
Yeah,
Ben, do you
I
like
do.
sour candy?
I love it, dude. In active addiction, I lived off of Sour Patch Kids
Yep.
and Little Caesars.
All right, so I'm going to turn you on to something, and it puts these to shame.
Okay.
No shame to Jolly Rancher sour gummies. I mean, good in a pinch, but they don't hold a candle to this other brand that I'm about to share with you.
Yeah.
Okay?
All
You
right.
ready?
I'm ready.
It's called Sour Strips.
The sour punch straws. right?
No. Sour Strips. I'll share with you after the podcast.
Okay.
But Sour Strips is where it's at. So,
Yeah, I got to second that.
yep, Sour Strips. The tagline is actual sour candy, and the guy that started it, his name is Max Tuning.
And it's like a roll of tape that you like unravel.
You know, like fruit roll-ups.
Yeah.
It's not anything like that. Now that I think about it, it's not in a roll. It comes in a bag, and they're strips, and you just pull them out. You know,
They're only a couple inches, right?
They're probably about 6 inches long.
Yeah.
They're
you
at
know?
like gas stations.
They're
and
at
stuff?
they're at all the Targets and they're at 7-Eleven.
Okay.
Those are the two big retailers. I'll bring you a bag.
All right.
Yeah. So
Looking
shout
forward
out Max Tuning and Sour Strips. He built this company from the ground up. I wish I could say he's in recovery because it'd be, a cool podcast episode, but he's not. In fact, he drinks rather often. So, but he's not one of us, but he's a rather cool guy. And I've watched him build this company, just via Instagram. I don't know the guy at all, but he has a podcast though too.
Oh, really? Here I'm thinking you're
Yeah.
like best friends because you've
No.
referenced him before.
Yeah, no, that's how you make friends, Ben.
Instagram.
Yeah.
Tom is very good at that. Have we ever talked about that?
Talked about what?
I don't know, dude. You meet all these people somehow. It always kind of blows my mind.
Listen, here's my philosophy, okay? And I'm just now thinking of this, so it's not like I've had this in my head this whole time. Relationships can be made via social media. Very, very beneficial relationships can be made via social media. A lot of the people that have been on this podcast that are, I don't know, popular, I guess you would say, is all via Instagram. And I don't care what niche you're in. There's people in that niche that are popular in some capacity. Interior design, addiction, health and fitness, auto mechanics, sales, yada, yada, yada. And all I do is I reference people on the podcast every now and again. Mind Pump, obviously, being one of the ones I reference the most. But people appreciate it. If you add value to people's lives, it generally comes back in return. Now, I'm not suggesting that, Max Tuning brings me on his Don't Be Sour podcast, but if he ever wanted to, I would be the first to fly out to Austin, Texas and go on. His podcast is called Don't Be Sour. And it's a pretty good podcast.
It's ironic that
Remember
he
that's-
sells sour strips.
Yeah.
Don't be sour.
Ghost energy drinks?
Yeah.
So Sour Strips, Max is he's like a big ambassador for them, and Sour Strips and Ghost Energy Drinks did a collab and did a energy drink too.
Yeah, the sour energy drinks.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
I feel
So-
like that's the old drug dealer motto. Don't get high on your own supply. Like, don't be sour, but then he's selling sour strips. Right?
I mean, I suppose.
Yeah. That never worked out for me, though. I always got high on my own supply. Hence, I'm sitting here, Tom.
Yep. So, anyways, I'm gonna get you a bag of those
Cool.
and
Thank
see
you.
see what you think. I
Yeah.
guarantee they're a little bit more expensive though. It's like $3 and some cents a bag.
It's not that much. This was more. I'm not that happy with these though. I wish I would have just got the Sour Patch Kids. I was just trying these and I'm not impressed.
No, they're not. No, you need some actual sour candy,
Yeah.
Sour Strips by Max Tuning.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
We're 8 minutes in and we have talked
Yeah,
about nothing.
sorry audience. Sorry audience. All right, Spilly. I like doing these interviews because honestly, we don't know each other very well outside of the couple of weeks that we've been interacting.
Right.
And you have a story, and a lot of our listeners, our parents, their loved ones that have they have children in their lives that are like you, like me,
Yeah.
like Ben, they have little Spillies running around. And I think the direction that I would like to go in this is one, because we did talk a little bit about your treatment history. I definitely want to get into that. But before we even get in there, just talk a little bit about your upbringing, where you grew up, stuff like that. It's organic conversation. So wherever it goes,
Right.
but we'll just start there.
So I'm local to Florida.
Which is, let me just pause you there, extremely rare.
Yeah.
Most
Most of the people here are from out of state.
You were born here?
Born in Boca.
Oh, were you?
Born in a hospital in Boca, but we drove back. We were living in Boynton, like
Okay.
Lantana area. So I've been here my whole life and I love it. I had a great childhood. Like two loving parents, mom and dad, no alcohol problem, no drug addiction, not even on their side of the family. Took a lot of vacations, came to all my sporting events, all my basketball, football games, like just like a perfect little family picture. Sister really excelled. Like when she would want to like learn how to swim or bike, I would be 3 years younger than her trying to do the same thing. So I learned to do a lot of things at a really young age. But yeah, it was just that kind of like makes me wonder where everything went wrong, because I am such a black sheep in the family, you know.
Why do you think? Or what, like if you've been wondering that for a while, what answers have you come up with?
So every time I go to treatment, right, they always, and it's been many times, they do the intake and they always ask, do you have any trauma? Do you have any trauma? I would always say no. But I'm so thankful for Nicole this time, the therapist here, because she helped me kind of unveil some trauma that I had that I wasn't even aware of.
Really?
Some like such minuscule trauma, just how I perceived it. It wasn't traumatic to my sister. She turned out great. But the way I perceived it and the way I let it affect me, it was traumatic for me. So I think Nicole is just like an angel for me. Like I was originally supposed to have Hannah, and then I came here and went up to Nicole's office to ask her like for a charger, and we ended up talking for like an hour, and she was like, you're so much like me. I'm going to steal you from Hannah and we're going to work. And so now I was just like a God thing that I met Nicole, and I think she's literally like an angel for me. Like it's God that I met her.
Wow.
Yeah.
She'll like to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
She'll probably cry. Maybe.
Yeah. Oh, she will.
Yeah.
She will.
Well, all of our therapists are great. Hannah's great. Nicole's great. Maya's great. But, so growing up, I mean, it was a picture perfect family. You grew up in Boca/Boynton. You played sports. What sports did you play?
Basketball, football.
Oh, that's right. I saw you.
I've always had like
court.
really addictive personalities though. From a really young age, I would like cling on to one area or sport. So like the first one I remember it being was like WWE wrestling. I was just like, if I wasn't playing with the little action figures or playing it on the video game or watching it on TV, I was like out on the trampoline, like practicing the wrestling moves with my friends, like videotaping it. And then that kind of, as I got a little older, that transitioned into skateboarding. So then same thing. If I wasn't out on the skateboard, I was playing it on the video games or watching it, just like really addicted to whatever I was in that time. And then that turned into like sports. When I got into my early teens, I was really into sports, playing the video games, actually playing them or watching them. And eventually that kind of turned into drugs, you know?
When did drugs enter into your life?
I think I was like in 6th or 7th grade, and I smoked weed for the first time on Halloween night. 6th or 7th grade out in the woods.
You remember it distinctly?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And what did it do for you in that moment?
So to be honest, the first time I did it, I took like one hit out of a little water bottle. I pulled up to the neighborhood and I saw my best friend Danny, and I could tell he just looked different. Like I could tell like just by looking at his eyes and how he was acting that something was different. And they were like, yeah, we got some weed. Like, you want to go out to the forest and try it? So I did it. I honestly didn't feel anything. I was just like pretending to be high.
Really?
Because like, yeah, I looked at them and I didn't feel anything. I don't think I did it right. Like, I don't think I inhaled it. And I got one little hit of like some like res like left over. So I kind of walked around and like pretended to have like my eyes low and just acted like them. But yeah, the first time it didn't really feel anything.
So there's something there, you know, and I think that there is a part of a therapist bone in me. And this is what I'm going to say to that. The fact that you hit this, we'll just call it a water bong.
Yeah.
And you know for certain you didn't get high. In fact, you think you did it wrong.
Yeah.
But still felt the need to act high.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You know,
Yeah.
rather than just coming out and saying, well, this didn't work. Whatever you guys are doing, I obviously did it wrong.
Yeah.
You acted high. Why?
I guess just to fit in and be a part of,
Yeah.
I didn't want to, maybe in the back of my mind, I didn't even want to be high. And I just wanted them to think that, okay, I did it and it worked. I don't know. It was a while ago. I guess.
That's probably why. I mean, because that happens to a lot of people. We end up doing these sorts of things because we find our tribe,
Yeah.
and we want to fit in.
I love the honesty and the fact, like, what it translates to me too is my insecurity. Like, at the end of the day, how much stuff did I do that I didn't really want to do?
Yeah.
But I did it because of my insecurity. And then there kicks in the addict personality and this obsession.
Right.
And to keep doing it. Just like you were referencing the wrestling, all that stuff. Like,
Yeah.
that addict mentality can apply to anything, which is, we were talking before we started recording, but I was telling him, like, being in recovery is like a superpower. There's these instances where, like, if you can take that obsessive mindset and put it towards something that's conducive to life and being productive,
Yeah.
like, dude, when people can harness that,
Could be dangerous.
it's a gift.
Yeah.
It's an absolute gift, but at the same time, you watch it through the treatment process and people's childhood up through their addiction, it destroys them.
Yeah.
So it's
Definitely. Could turn it around for something dangerously good.
could be an asset or a
Yeah.
liability.
Yep.
It's interesting too. I wanted to bring this up, where you were talking about family, and a lot of our listeners are family and loved ones. But if you listen to Joey's description of his family, he grew up in a perfect family, right? That's what I'm hearing. Like, they could do no wrong, so to speak. And I want the families to hear that, because so many times families will beat themselves up. And this is a perfect example coming from the addict alcoholic. Like, hey, you all did everything you were supposed to do, and I still ended up this way. And I think that's important for families to hear a lot of times, because we talk about the cunning, baffling, powerful, you didn't cause it, you can't cure it, you can't control it deal. Like, we watch families come from all different demographics, whether you grow up poor, whether you grow up rich, whether you grow up in the hood, whether you grow up by the beach in Mar-a-Lago, like, it doesn't discriminate. And I think it's just really important for families to hear that, and not dwell on that.
When did it progress? So you had your instance with pot. I mean, it obviously progressed probably rather quickly.
Yeah. So, I mean, ever since I could remember, I had very bad anxiety at a young age. Kindergarten, first grade, I had a disorder called trichotillomania, where I would pull out my hair, like my eyelashes and stuff like that. Kindergarten, first grade. I thought I was just like a freak, and then come to find out years later, it's like a disorder that millions of people have. It's like a coping mechanism, similar to like biting your nails or something like that. It just like releases stress.
My niece just went through that.
The trichotillomania.
It's interesting you bring that up. I had never heard that term until like a few months ago.
It was crazy, and that's such a young age to be feeling anxiety like that. That's like a really young age to start with the pulling of the hair. So I mean, after, like I said, I tried the weed on the Halloween night, didn't feel it, and then by the time I was in 9th grade, I was after school every day smoking weed every single day. It was like an addictive. Every single day after school, would go to my friend's house. I was still trying to hide it at this point, like with the eye drops and everything. So we went to a friend's house whose mom really didn't care that much about it. Just every day we would be smoking weed, drinking on weekends, like normal high school stuff. And then I think I was in the first real hard drug I tried was, I think, my junior or senior year. I had someone reach out and say, hey, I have a pill. It was on Facebook chat. He said, I have a pill called Xanax. And I was like, oh, I don't really do pills. And he said, well, I see you smoke a lot of weed. Like, you smoke blunts with your friends. If you take one of these pills and you smoke a blunt, you'll feel like you smoked 5 blunts. So I tried it. And with that, like I was saying, with the anxiety at a really young age, that was like when I took that Xanax, I just knew that at that point, that's how regular people feel all the time. Just like my anxiety just went away. And I knew that's how regular people feel all the time. So after that, it just went crazy with the Xanax for a couple of years.
Why did, like, he just randomly messaged you out of the blue? I mean, that's strange. I mean, I guess
I ended up becoming best friends with this kid and like making music with him for years. And I don't like to blame anyone for my actions, but if I probably never would have came in contact with this kid, my life probably would have ended up a whole different trajectory.
Yeah.
But yeah, we ended up taking Xanax every single day, just drinking, like just living to get messed up, you know?
It's interesting that you say that, and we can spend a minute on this. We all have those people that enter into our lives that steer us in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
It's funny you referenced the mom that didn't really care that much. Mm-hmm. We all had that. I had the friends whose dad, he could care less.
Right.
You know, that was the party house. You just went there, you know, and he said, look, he would make me, because I was the youngest one. Yeah. You know, I always hung out with people that were, you know, 4 or 5 years older than me. And I'd walk into the house and he'd come right up to me, take my keys, you know.
Yeah.
And say, look, you can drink here, you can do this stuff here, but you ain't going to drive.
Right.
You know, and that's what we did, you know, and he didn't care. Can I blame him for it? No. Do I even want to blame him for it? No. But would my life have been different? Maybe. Right. I don't know. You know, it's one of those things, like, because you get to a point that all this stuff that we went through, you're grateful for it, you know? You'll get to a point, if you're not already, you'll get to a point where you'll be grateful for that experience and that kid offering those pills to you.
Yeah.
Because had you not gone through what you gone through, you wouldn't be where you're at. You know what I mean?
I'm already at that point. I was in that point when I've always been a believer of, if you change one minute little detail in your past, you're not even aware the chain that it's affecting. So I would have never met certain people that I met, made certain songs that I met. Like, no matter what I go through, I always will never want to go back and change anything.
That's interesting. Yeah. You got a lot of wisdom about you. How old are you?
25.
Yeah.
He does carry himself in a certain way.
Yes. Your parents did a good job.
You're an old soul.
Yeah.
I feel
old soul.
I got sober at 26. Not that it matters.
Nice.
But just saying, you can do it, you know?
Thank you.
A lot of times people look at age, and I did this at 26. Now I'm a drinker. That was the love of my life was Budweiser and Jim Beam.
Yeah.
You know? And Xanax. Mm-hmm. Xanax, I did a lot of that. And cocaine. But at 26 years old, it was, you know, I think most 26-year-olds entering into treatment for the first time, I'm thinking to myself, well, doesn't every 26-year-old drink? Doesn't, you know? But it quickly became apparent to me, no, not every 26-year-old drinks the way that I drink.
Yeah.
You know, and I thought that this was just like a phase. And come to find out, it could have been just a phase, but the opportunities that were afforded me by staying sober, it played that whole risk versus reward factor. Am I willing to risk everything that I've gained in the last 30 days, 60 days, 6 years to even see if it was just a phase?
Right.
I could, Ben, you know, I very well could go off and start drinking again and maybe not drink to the point of alcoholism for a period of time. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't predict the future, right?
Don't do that, Tom.
But that's what I'm saying.
I would murder you myself.
That's the reference that I'm making, is like, you get to a point where it's like, am I willing to risk even putting that theory to the test?
No, it's not.
I'm not.
Right.
You know, at least today I'm not.
Yeah.
You know. So when did the wheels fall off? I mean, You've been to treatment a fair share of times.
Yeah, how many times have you been to treatment?
I would say like at least 10 different facilities, for sure. At least 10, between 10 to 15.
What age was the first one?
I want to say 20.
So
Maybe
15,
21.
call it 10 to 15 facilities in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So what happened
At 20.
Yeah, what happened
led
at
up to
20?
that?
So I got into opiates a few years after the Xanax. I kind of quit the Xanax cold turkey because this is around when the time fentanyl was really becoming like publicly well known.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of fake Xanax bars going around. And I was probably taking them towards the end of my Xanax usage. But it scared me so badly that I found like a reliable source to get what I knew was 100% real oxycodone 30 milligrams. So I kind of just stopped the Xanax and went to oxys. And after that was like a whole nother demon, just oxys. So that's really when it fell off. I got to a point where I didn't even know what withdrawals were, but I stopped using the oxys because I ran out of money. I think I was even taking money from like my parents at this time. And I went into such a bad withdrawal. It was the worst withdrawal I've ever had. Like the first day or something, I thought I might have just had like a flu or gotten really sick. And then, I don't know, I kind of just put it together. Like, well, I haven't had my drug of choice in a few days, and I looked it up. And then I was familiar with the term withdrawal, but I guess I didn't think I was doing enough to like withdraw, but I was going pretty hard. And it was the worst, like couldn't sip water without vomiting. Had to go to the hospital to get IV because I was so dehydrated. Potassium was so low and everything. And then I went to rehab. They brought me to, I think I was Marchman acted that first time. It might have not been. It might have been willingly that first time, but yeah.
Describe a Marchman Act. From what you know.
It's like your family goes to a judge or something, and legally you have to. It's only in Florida. You legally have to attend some sort of treatment. And if you don't attend or you AMA or something like that, there's a warrant out for your arrest. So you legally have to be in treatment.
Yeah.
Yeah, your family basically contests to a judge that you are a danger to yourself and society. And down here in Florida, we have what's called the Baker Act, too, where like if you're suicidal, something along those lines, they find you overdose, they may Baker Act you.
Yeah.
The police will do that, but in this case, families can get an attorney
to facilitate a Marchman Act.
Exactly.
I've had the Baker, too. I've been Baker acted before, too.
So Baker Act, for the listeners, Baker Act is suicidal ideations, or, you know, if somebody says I'm suicidal and I have a plan or something along those lines, then we could initiate what's called a Baker Act. The police will come and pick them up, take them for generally a 72-hour hold, but it never seems that way.
Not anymore.
It's supposed to be 72 hours, but generally they're out after 12 or 24.
Take you to a nice place.
Yeah.
Real nice place.
I'm assuming you've been to JFK? Or some sort of Baker Act.
It was on Military right by Transformations in Boca or Delray. It was horrible.
Yeah, that's JFK. Ain't it, Ben?
Right by Transformations, right on Military.
No, you're talking. Is it Beth? It's not Bethesda,
Transformations in Delray.
Yeah, it was literally two, because I got Baker acted when I was touring Transformations, and they took me. It was like a 2-minute car ride to the mental facility, and it was horrible.
And a Marchman Act is basically you're a harm to yourself or to society. By the way of drug addiction or alcoholism.
Mm-hmm.
And a judge can say, you're going to treatment whether you like it or not, and if you leave, we'll arrest you.
Mm-hmm.
Which, honestly, I wish they would do that more often. You know, I think a Marchman Act is very, very, very beneficial for people. Even if you get Marchman acted, you know, 90% of people aren't going into treatment like, woohoo, I'm going to treatment. You know, you get Marchman acted into a facility, that's great. And then once you get into a facility, it's our job to help you see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
You know, which it sounds like what is happening with you, you know, even by meeting Nicole, you know.
Definitely.
So
Out of curiosity, your first treatment, what was that experience? Were you open, willing once you got there? Did you
No.
AMA? Did you get admin DC'd? What happened?
Total reservation. Just there to get family off my back completely. Knew 100% right even before I got there that when I get out, I was going back to my drug of choice. I think I did end up AMAing. Like got my parents to come pick me up in Tampa. It was a nice facility. I could have got sober there if I wanted to. Definitely, they had the tools and stuff. I don't really remember them pushing any 12 steps though. Maybe I just was not paying attention at all. But yeah, I ended up I've gotten high in treatment a lot. And there was a kid that came in and he was like, you're Spill. You're like, I know your music. You made a song with an artist down here. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, he was aware of who I was. And he's like, I have a weed pen and they didn't pat me down so we were hitting the weed pen the whole time.
Oh,
and
geez.
they were testing our levels and they were like, why is your THC levels getting higher? And we just denied till we died, you know. I think I eventually got kicked out just because the levels wouldn't go down. But I was there for probably 40 some days.
So you went through 10 to 15 treatment centers over the last 5 years. What was your mentality throughout all these, treatment attempts? Was it strictly to get my parents off my back? And then what's different now? What changed?
I probably haven't taken it seriously until I would say my past 2 or 3, maybe 2 times before this.
Okay.
Is when I was really receptive and willing. I think the biggest thing that did it for me is knowing that I'm completely diminishing my potential as an individual. I know what I'm capable of, and it's just I don't want to look back or not look back because I'm dead and waste my whole life, And I saw the pain it was causing every single person that knew me, and I just decided to start taking it seriously. I believe the people in AA and NA when they say that they have a life beyond their wildest dreams. I don't think they're lying. I believe it.
What is it about that makes you believe? Why do you believe that?
Because there's no way there's that many people who are in on some sort of charade, and you could just see it in their face. You can just tell. I've always been good at sensing people's energy and if they're being truthful or genuine, and you could just see it in them by their stories and then how they act now.
What he's describing, Nicole, she probably talked to you about this. I'd be surprised if she didn't. But basically what you're describing is an empath.
Yes.
She talked to you about that?
That's why we get to, she's an empath, I'm an empath.
What is that?
Sounds like what?
What is it? What do you
What
mean
happened
by
to your
that?
therapist bone? Is that what you called it?
Yeah, I didn't get that one.
Just you feel other people's feelings really deeply at a young age. So
I'm not
when I was young, my dad would sing me a lullaby before I could even talk, and I would start crying. And they would be so confused. They'd be like, why is he crying? And I just I think I was old enough to murmur out a too sad, too sad. And Nicole said, oh my God, I can't believe you said that, because when I was really young, I saw a movie about slavery, and I walk in on my parents watching it, and there was a scene where they were whipping a slave, and she said she started crying. I've shared so much stuff with Nicole that she says, oh my God, we're the same person. So that's why we click.
Wow.
Yeah.
It give me chills.
It could be a gift and it could be a curse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where the whole I got to make sure everybody else is okay
Yeah.
thing comes in. And I mean, essentially speaking, dude, if you think about like drugs and alcohol, sometimes it's been described to me that empaths, they feel so much that alcohol and drugs helps to in a way numb that out
Yeah.
to the point where it can be overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
But again, dude, being an empath, it's another one that I'll reference. It can be like a superpower.
Right.
People will trust you. There's just something like an aura about people like you, like Nicole. But at the same time, those folks often end up in active addiction.
Yeah. Yep.
Tom's like, what's going on here?
No, I mean, it's interesting because I'm not that way. And I think it can be a blessing and a curse, you know, so it goes both ways. Like don't get me wrong. I'm not a sociopath. You know, I feel, I don't like when people are sad or unhappy or whatever, but I also don't take it on myself, which it sounds like that's what an empath does.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, a lot of times. And, you know, that could be a tough, because I could see that you take on everybody else's kind of stuff and it drains you.
Nicole would be so proud. They refer to it as a transference and countertransference.
Yeah.
Where, like, for instance, transference is like if you feel what a client is feeling, the countertransference, and you basically, like you're saying, Tom, you take that on as your own, and therapists in particular have to be very careful with that, because if Joey's sharing something with me, it could be something negative that makes me angry, and I can personalize that to my own past and take it out on him, or not respond appropriately in his best clinical interest,
Right.
because of my own personal past experiences and feelings.
Yeah.
So transference, countertransference, you got to be careful with as empaths. But again, it can really help. Like in this case, he was talking about him and Nicole having like a God moment, meeting each other. It's just one of those things where, like, they probably didn't even have to say much to each other. Just look each other in the eyes, and you're like, "Oh, you're my therapist." You know what I mean?
Yeah, I walked in her room and I saw the little Buddha statue, and I knew she was like on some spiritual stuff.
Yeah.
Little Buddha thing.
So the 2 treatment centers, and then obviously currently things are different. What is it that you think? Because you have a lot of treatment references prior to that, and then now where things are starting to, become more apparent for you.
Yeah.
What does that look like for you? Like your sobriety as a whole, why do you feel like you're so bought in at this stage? And then we'll follow up that with, what fears do you have around your sobriety?
I feel like I'm so bought in now just because that first time I smoked on that Halloween night I was 13 years old, 14. So that's been over 10 years now of just pure misery. I mean, I've had some good times, but I've just been unhappy for a long time. And like I said, I think that people are not lying in these rooms, and it's like to the point where it's just like, why not? Anything to, like, my goal this time around is to feel better than I ever have without any sort of substance. And like sitting back and thinking about that goal, I feel like it's a very tangible, realistic goal, because the bar's not that high, I haven't ever felt that great. So like, I feel like it's almost inevitable that if I do this thing the right way and really put work in, I'm gonna feel better than I ever have.
You said something before we started recording that was very tangible, and Tom has a saying that goes with it. You mentioned there's a reason that you need to do it this time. Do you mind sharing what that is? Do you remember what I'm referencing?
Oh yeah, the insurance. Yeah, I'm gonna turn 26, and I'm gonna get kicked off my dad's insurance, which is scary. I feel like it puts a lot of pressure on me,
Yeah. So the terminology or the phrase that Ben's referring to that I use a lot is the recovery starts when the insurance stops. And that's not mine. I didn't make that. I've heard
That's
that.
good. I've never heard that.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those phrases that, down here in South Florida, probably got pretty popular, I don't know, a handful of years ago.
I don't think it's not like it used to be.
No.
Without getting too crazy into it, back in 2014 to 16, those years, there's what was called client brokering. I won't get into it, but there's documentaries on it and movies about it now where people were basically recycling patients through treatment and just making money off insurance fraud at the expense of alcoholics and addicts.
Yeah.
But that phrase came about because a lot of these addicts and alcoholics, 26 is when you legally age out. Is that a federal law? It's federal, right?
I don't know. I think there's some state restrictions. I know some people, you can stay on it. Like, I feel like I remember a few years ago, they might have passed some law that if you're in college,
Yeah,
you can stay on your parents' insurance through 30 years old, which is crazy to me. But at any rate,
there's exceptions to the rule. But anyway, that saying the recovery starts when the insurance stops, it's because clients years ago used to have their insurance card as like a safety net. It was always like, oh, if I relapse, I'll just check back into the next treatment center. And let's just call it what it is. There's so many treatment centers in the nation that you could call an 800 number anywhere. They don't know you. They don't know that you, Joey, have been to treatment 13 times. They don't know the difference. You're someone calling, hey, I need help.
Right.
All right, come on in. You know, when for you, the addict, you just keep checking back in like it's a safety net. And I like that you brought that up, like you feel like the pressure's on.
Yeah.
And do you want to elaborate on that anymore?
So I just feel like I know how bad the state-run facilities are. I've never been to one, but I've heard horrible things about them.
They're pretty bad. I've been to a few.
So
I'd rather go to jail
really
than a couple of the detoxes that I've been to, for sure.
You don't get the type of treatment that you get at places like this. It's not even on the same spectrum from what I hear, at a state-run. So I just, if I relapsed, I would have to lean on is like the rooms of AA and NA.
right.
Yeah.
Which isn't a bad thing, but you know, you can't detox off of fentanyl and heroin in a AA room.
Yeah.
You know, so you're going to feel like shit.
I think honestly, like just to kind of give context to it, like I think I'm a good example of that. I had been to treatment multiple times, and this is the only time I ever stayed sober in my life. And, you know, I had gone through detoxes with opiates, alcohol, all that stuff. But this time is the only time that I stayed sober, and I literally had zero resources. I didn't even check into a state-funded facility. I literally just detoxed on my own, literally dying. And for whatever reason, I don't know that it was the difference maker, so to speak, because all those treatments before, I had obviously picked up the tools. It's not like I went through treatment and didn't learn anything.
Right.
But for whatever reason, this time was the time where like I suffered the most, but it's the only time that I stayed sober. Now, that doesn't have to be everybody's case. I don't want to like encourage that message, so to speak.
Yeah.
But that is the case for some people, which is why I like that you brought this up. Because like, yeah, if the pressure's on, like at this point for me, the pressure was on. Like, I'm like, oh my God, this was so bad this time.
Yeah.
The detox was so horrific, and I had no meds to help me get off. Like, I didn't ever want to go through that again. It was brutal.
Yeah.
And maybe it was a motivator. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was. I don't know. All I know is what happened and what my story is, you know?
Spilly, what's the longest you've ever been clean?
Probably right before I came here and relapsed, I think it was like 88 days. I was coming up to 90.
And what happened?
So I was on Suboxone maintenance. I was at a facility that allowed Suboxone maintenance. I was taking a very small dose. The smallest dose that you're able to take is 2 milligrams, 2 and 2, I think. I was taking half that. So I'll cut it in half. I was taking 1 and 1. And this facility I was at, you were only able to see the doctor once a week. And if you missed her, you had to wait a whole nother week. So I missed her one time, wasn't able to get a refill on my subs. I didn't even feel that. I mean, I felt a little unwell, but I was definitely exaggerating it in my head to justify it, and came across a good amount of money. And I got a kidney stone at the same time, which was the worst pain I've ever felt. So all these things kind of aligned, and I was just like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna just relapse. And
Were you living in sober living at that point?
I was at home.
You were at home.
With my parents, yep.
Oh, so you were doing a Suboxone maintenance program from home.
Yeah. I was going to IOP. I was doing a PHP from home. But when I relapsed, I was in IOP. But yeah, I was just commuting to the facility every day. They were administering me the Suboxone, and I was just sleeping at home.
What's your take on that approach without us like chiming in on our opinions and experiences and stuff?
On going home?
Like the Suboxone and
Suboxone. I know a lot of people like in the rooms say, "Oh, you're not technically sober if you're on Suboxone." I think for some people they might need it. I'm not too educated on it. I think some people might need it, but I just wanted to. My whole reason I did this is to get off any type of substance. You know, I don't want like a crutch. So this time around, I'm not doing that. You know,
the Suboxone side of things, and I heard you say this a couple weeks back. I feel like your opinion kind of aligns with mine and Ben's, and I don't know if you remember saying this or not, but you said that Suboxone makes sense for people if you're trying to keep them alive.
Yeah.
And that's really Ben and I's approach with it. You know, if you're a 65-year-old man and you've had a needle dangling out of your arm for the last 40 and you for whatever reason just cannot fathom abstinence-based treatment, then go ahead and go on Suboxone maintenance.
Yeah, I agree.
But here we are, we have a 25-year-old young man who has his fair share of drug addiction, but let's call it what it is. You're young. You know, you haven't been shooting dope for 30 years. You got your whole life ahead of you. And you go on Suboxone maintenance. And this is what a lot of times what Ben references. And I know you referenced the kidney stone as part of this, but in my opinion, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you were on Suboxone. You missed a week because that's the first thing you said.
Yeah.
I missed a week of my Suboxone, which could trip the trigger.
The obsession of the mind.
The obsession of the mind. Yeah. Well, I missed my Suboxone. Can I even wrap my head around going another week without some sort of substance?
Right.
And that is my biggest issue with Suboxone, amongst other things, is here we got a 25-year-old man who is just switched one out for another.
Yeah.
And as soon as you miss the doctor, it's like, well, fuck it. I'll just go get high.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I got a kidney stone. It'll probably help with that a little bit. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, I was like, I'll feel it. It'll work now because I'm not on the Suboxone, you know?
Yeah.
Can't get high when you're on the Suboxone.
So if you're listening to this and if you have somebody in your life that is pulling the Suboxone maintenance card, I can't stress enough that unless they are legit dying, that you need to seek other avenues, I suppose.
The potential for quality of life is just not there from what my personal experience. I've been on both Suboxone and methadone in the past.
Yeah.
Neither one worked out for me. Cognitively speaking, and we've covered this in past episodes, you are just not there. And like going back to, we were talking about Joey being young. If you think, and you referenced the 50-year-old or 60-year-old who's been needle dangling out of their arm for 40 years. From a physiological perspective, the longer you keep an opiate, an opioid, whatever it is, in somebody's system, their body becomes more dependent on it as the years go on.
Yeah.
And at 25 years old, if you're keeping somebody on Suboxone, it is an opioid. Buprenorphine, Suboxone is an opioid. You are making their body more dependent. The likelihood that down the road it's going to get easier for them to get off of, that's a fallacy. It's going to get harder and harder and harder because you are going to become more physiologically, mentally addicted, dependent, whatever you want to call it. I mean, even on the warning label of the Suboxone, I was kind of, and they taught us about this in school, dude, and I just kind of call it a bunch of nonsense. This is my opinion, so you could take it or leave it, but they were trying to tell us that there's a difference between addiction and dependence. Like pharmaceutical companies are trying to tell me that there's a difference between addiction, being addicted, and being dependent. If I'm physically dependent, I'm addicted. I'm sorry. Like if I'm going to go through withdrawal, there's going to be a mental point where I'm like, oh my God, if I could just get one to feel better. Like,
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. If you're dependent, you're dependent. You're addicted. But like pharmaceutical companies try to be like, no, well, there's a difference. No, if you're at the point where you're going to go through withdrawal, that's a problem.
What does it say on the package of Suboxone?
It says that there's a physical dependence, which is not necessarily the same as addiction.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm
It
like,
does? It says that?
it used to. I don't know if it still does. I've obviously haven't opened a Suboxone label in a really long time, but you know the little pamphlet that all medications come with? Yeah. It's like this little tiny piece of paper and it opens up into like a blanket. It's a big old warning.
So how do you feel now, though? So how much clean time do you have now?
I think I got 33 days today.
Free and clear of any mood and mind altering
Yeah,
substances.
nothing.
No Suboxone, no nothing.
Nothing.
How do you feel?
I feel good. I feel like I'm one of those people who, when you take a substance away from me, I need some other type of solution. So that's why I'm really looking forward to getting through the steps. I notice in treatment, I look around at a lot of other people, and it seems like for some other people, most of their problem is the substance. And when they remove that, they're like, I feel better than I've ever felt in my life. Like after like 2 or 3 weeks. And unfortunately, that's not the case for me. I think there is a bigger underlying issue that I need to address in my case. But physically, I feel great. Physically, mentally, I wouldn't even complain that much. But I know that there's like room for a lot of growth.
I'm going to go clinician on you on this one. And I'm talking to you. And our audience can listen because I think that this applies to more than just you.
Yeah.
Where this is my clinical opinion on it. You were talking about earlier, if we connect all the dots, you smoked weed, you didn't feel it, you pretended like you felt it so you could fit in.
Right.
Hence, maybe drugs and alcohol for you. I don't want to speak for you, so confirm this or not. Did they make you feel connected, a part of something with other people?
The Xanax definitely made my social anxiety, and it just gave me a sense of apathy. Like I wasn't worried about tragedy and stuff like that, you know?
So what I'm getting at is you were saying you take away substances, you need another solution. That's pretty much exactly what you said like 30 seconds ago, a minute ago.
Yep.
The picture that I want to paint for you is 12 steps, for instance. And I was just talking with my sponsee the other night. I met with him Sunday night, and we're going through step work, and we're on his second step. And what I was explaining to him is the steps are like an avenue to doing the same thing that alcohol and drugs gave me. Alcohol and drugs gave me the ability to everything that you were just describing. Like I used, for instance, cocaine and alcohol to connect with people. I'd start doing coke, I start getting chattier, you're hanging out, you're like, become more comfortable. You can say whatever you want to say without having anxiety or fear about it.
Yeah.
The steps are kind of the same way. The steps gave me an opportunity. Every time I sit down with the sponsee to do steps, we're sitting down and we're going to talk about some subjects, some topics, some past stuff, some trauma stuff, you name it, as human beings. It's like literally giving us a venue to connect with other people. So, and I always ask people, and I bring this up quite often, I'll ask our clients, like, what did alcohol and drugs do for you? What were the positives? And again, you mentioned the anxiety, social anxiety, stuff like that. It reduced it. So, and the reason I ask people what it did for you that's good is that way we know what we need to work on as far as towards a solution. So how do we find a way for Joey here to have less social anxiety without substances? You got to figure out what the problem is. What was drugs and alcohol the solution to for you? And how do we find a way to get that same solution without the substances and without the consequences? You see what I'm saying?
Right. Yep.
Like steps give me an opportunity to sit down with another man and connect on a level. Like some of the stuff I talk with some of my sponsees, I'm like, and I'll just stop and be like, dude, do you realize how intimately, authentically, vulnerably we're talking right now? When do you do this when you're not high with people? They're like, never. I'm like, and that is why I love 12 steps. It's literally giving us the opportunity, opening this door to have these conversations with each other, and we're not high out of our minds right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's a good point. And Go ahead.
I was going to kind of change direction.
Go ahead. We got about 10 minutes.
Okay. I wanted to bring up family weekend.
Okay.
Because and I just want to get your take on it. So I met Joey's family this weekend. Mom had swung in a couple weeks ago for just a day just to meet us and tour the place and stuff. And you weren't here that day, I don't think. At least I didn't see you with Mom together. I don't think.
No, he wasn't here yet.
Oh, he wasn't here yet.
No. I think you were coming the very next day.
Is that what
Your
it was?
mom came.
I think I was at the house. I think I was just at the house.
Oh, maybe
she
you were
came
here.
by the
I don't know.
clinical.
Yeah.
Yeah, she came to clinical when I was at the house. We weren't at group at that time.
Oh, okay.
Just being a good mom. Mama
Yeah.
Bear. Oh, I want to see where he's at. Make sure
Yeah.
everything's good and
Oh,
kosher.
yeah.
But we had our family weekend this weekend. And as previously mentioned on other episodes, we ran out, what are those called? Conference room
Yep.
at the Hilton in the Gardens downtown. The families come in for the weekend. Your sister, your mom, and your dad all participated Saturday and Sunday. From your perspective, what did you get out of it? What did your family maybe get out of it? I don't know that we've ever gotten someone's, as a client, their direct perspective on the experience.
So we've been to a few family weekends before. Not my sister and my dad. I think I went with just my mom, but I was really glad this time that my dad's kind of one of those people who's doesn't really understand the neurological aspect that much. He was kind of like the one that would be like, why can't you just you should just put it down? You know what I mean? Like that type of guy. He didn't really understand that my frontal cortex was literally hijacked. So I was glad he got to see the neurological aspect. It was a good video, but I have seen ones that described what's going on in the brain way better than that. So I told her, she asked me for it. I'm going to show it. I'm going to give it to her. So next time she could play that one. But they've read letters, and I'm glad my sister got to see the neurological aspect as well. And the letters were huge,
What's the letters? Our listeners don't know what the letters are.
So it's an impact letter where they, your loved ones write about the emotional damage that you caused them and just kind of all the wreckage that you created. And then you get an opportunity to write one to them. And you just share, you sit in the center of the room and your loved one reads to you and you sit there and take it in and then you read yours to them.
I'd like to explain from my perspective,
Okay,
as a clinician, what leads into that, and then I want to get your perspective on what the experience was like. So a lot of the times, our clients that are new, maybe they've never done a family weekend somewhere else. They hear this impact letter, and we hear the same thing all the time. Oh my God, I don't want to go sit down and have my family read me a letter of all the terrible things that I did. And they're under this impression that it's like a bashing session. Your family gets to come in and just rip you a new one and call you out on all the crap that you did. And we're like, well, actually, this part I should let you. What was that like? And was that your experience? What came with these letters? Was it a bashing session? Let's bash Joey. Was it like that?
No, it wasn't. It was more about not literally listing the things that I did. You did this, you did that. It was how it affected them negatively and emotionally. And they all wrote their letters so gracefully and so nicely. My sister's letter definitely had me tearing up, tears coming down my face. I wasn't bawling like I have been before, but they all wrote such great letters, and I have copies of them. I wish you would have been there to hear them, but I wasn't aware of, I knew I was hurting my family, and that was never my intention. I would have jumped in front of a train for either one of them at any point in my addiction, but I chose the drugs. That's what I want people to know. It doesn't mean you love the drug more than your family. Your actions just kind of depict that. I would have jumped in front of a train for my mom, my dad, or my sister at any point. But if they ask you, can you stop the drugs if you love us, or if you love us more than the drugs, and you can't do that when you're in active addiction.
Wow.
Yeah. That was put very, very well.
Dude, that was, yeah, man. So I did. I missed a letter. I wish I heard that.
I'll share it. I got them. I'll read them to you sometime.
Yeah, family weekend, I'm able to usually swing in for like a couple hours, either Saturday or Sunday. My wife works the weekends, and I got the little one, so I get in there. And unfortunately, I missed some of those key points that I feel bad missing them selfishly because I love watching those moments. I mean, I never see a family come in that doesn't cry at some point, straight up. And to be able to see families communicate and have a platform where they can communicate authentically, vulnerably, truthfully, and not in a way that is meant to attack either side or either party, but it's about being able to say what you really feel in a safe environment where, with the help of, in this case, Maya, Steve, they're there to help facilitate this and help the communication. I'm a firm believer in, through going to all these family weekends, and I've experienced them myself too. I attended a family weekend at a place called New Beginnings. I went to in Minnesota, but I don't believe families ever get the opportunity to communicate in the way that they do at a family weekend, because that's one of my key questions I ask families later afterwards. Like, for instance, I haven't done this, but I'll go to your mom and say, hey, have you ever communicated at that level with your family? As close as you are to your family, and in a lot of cases, it's so funny how we believe we're so good at communicating with our family and we know each other so well. Yet you go to a family weekend, it's on a whole nother level.
Yeah. That's what my sister literally said that in her letter. Like, that's how she started it off. She was like, I've always tried to be a safe space for you and like the most the most positive light in your life. And I've been very particular on how I talk to you about your addiction. But she said in this letter, it's time that I like really talk to you about how it affected me. And then she just kind of laid it on me, you know? Yeah.
Sometimes words don't even cover it. It's just like people will pull the letter out and they'll just look each other in the eye and lose it, dude. And it's a beautiful thing to watch. Like I said, it's
I think it's very beneficial.
All right. Well, now what? What do you foresee taking place for you over the next, I don't know, 6 months, year?
I think I'm going to get my first taste of independence, you know, never moved out of the house. And I think it's going to be good for me I was always very like sheltered and protected, and I still don't know how to do anything. I don't know how to, like, if I have to go to the car, like go get a car, like lease a car, I don't know what to bring. Like, I don't know I don't know how to file my taxes or any of that, like adult stuff. So I feel like just getting out there on my own, and like, I feel like this is a great step for me just to push me out of the nest and get some independence, you know?
Yeah. Well, you got us too. We'll help you. You have any questions for us before we wrap up? You got almost 30 years of combined sobriety right here.
I will ask like
26 years. It sounds better if you say almost 30, Ben.
Of combined?
Yeah.
Okay.
We each have 13 years.
Nice. I would just ask, what step, after talking to me, what step do you think around I'll get that relief of like, where I'm not so anxious anymore? Like, when do you think that comes along in recovery?
Okay, I will answer that not in terms of steps. I'm going to leave that to the step man here.
Okay.
And then he can answer it in terms of what step. I think my answer to you would be, so your question is, at what point do I think, based off of this conversation, will you not be so anxious and more?
Exactly.
You know, I don't have that answer, but let me elaborate on that. this whole recovery process, it's a roller coaster. You're going to have peaks, you're going to have valleys. There's going to be times, and for me at 6 months, I was in a valley. I was in a very low spot. You know, kind of felt depressed, felt just overall shitty, you know. But what I can tell you is the more that you work through it, the more that you surround yourself with good people. I'm a community person.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with good people. Do the right thing. There is going to be anxiety, but here's the thing. Anxiety, we're supposed to have anxiety. Anxiety is natural.
Yeah.
It is you're just not going to be able to get rid of it. I have anxiety. You know, one of the things that I struggle with a lot I'm not a hypochondriac, but I'm pretty damn close. You know, I always, if I get a certain pain, I automatically think something's wrong, you know? So the anxiety will be there. It's how do you manage it? You know, how do you cope with it in a way that you don't turn to drugs and alcohol? And over time, what happens is you start to understand, okay, I've been through this feeling before. I've had this emotion before. What did I do? You know, whatever that is for you, I go and make a piece of music, or I go out and grab a burger with the boys, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
It's not going to go away. You just learn how to manage it better. That's probably the best way I can answer that.
Yeah, he gave the long explanation. I'm going to give you the short version. Your anxiety is not going to go away. We just get better at handling it. That's what that's my take on it. Where I still have fear, I still have anxiety, I still have depression and the like. However, going through treatment, having 12 steps in the palm of my hand, I recognize now, like, oh, I have anxiety. Here's a solution to this specific problem today. You know, and the anxiety itself doesn't necessarily go away, but now I have the tools to navigate it in a way that's manageable, if that makes sense. Because anxiety, like Tom said, anxiety in particular can be a good thing. You mentioned what's the thing with the hair pulling?
Trichotillomania.
Yeah. I mean, so you've had anxiety since a young age.
Yeah.
And the thing is, think about it. I like a simple analogy. Anxiety is like fear in a way. You know, where fear, it's a God-given trait. Why? Because if I'm a caveman and a saber-toothed tiger comes running me down, I'm not going to walk up and be, oh, hey, kitty, right? I'll end up what? Dead. You know, I'll get eaten alive. But I've been given fear so that I know to run, right? Anxiety is the same way. It's, in my opinion, a God-given trait, or just, you know, you need it to survive. When I have anxiety, it's because I need to get something done. But the thing is being able to take that, now having the tools to analyze it, and what is it that's bringing me to this feeling of anxiety right now, and how can I handle that? And that's where you had asked about the steps in particular. I don't think that there's one step. I think it's all 12 and particular steps to address certain situations. Like I tell people all the time, you find me a problem, I'll point out the solution in the big book, somewhere in the first 164 pages.
Yeah.
Like people don't believe me, I'll literally be like, give me a problem, I'll find you. I'll go to a page right now in a paragraph and point how we fix that. And that's the thing is, like, again, this stuff doesn't go away. We just get better at handling it.
Right.
And I tell my sponsees that all the time. You know, we become better at life, man. You don't want anxiety to go away. If anxiety went away, we'd probably end up super lazy, right?
Or we'd put ourselves in a lot of peculiar positions. You know, you're supposed to have it. Spilly, do you read?
Yeah.
Do you like reading?
Yeah, I do.
If I get you a book, will you read it?
Yeah.
Okay, so another name drop. Ben, have you heard of this guy, Dr. John Deloney?
I have not.
Dr. John Deloney is a phenomenal guy. Again, I don't know him personally.
On Instagram you do?
No, I am friends with him on Instagram, but he's a licensed mental health counselor. Super cool guy. He's probably, I don't know, in his 40s or whatever. And he's got a book, and it's pulled up right here. It just came out. It's called The Non-Anxious Life. Right?
Wow. Self-help.
It's a really good read. for somebody like you, I feel like it would be very beneficial. And John Deloney has a hell of a story too. I won't get into the details, but I'll get you the book and you can read it.
Awesome.
And
Thank you.
I feel like that'll help.
Bro, you are
Cool.
making out. You're coming up on some sour strips.
Oh yeah, I
book?
owe you sour
Wow.
strips too.
A book, bro.
Sour strips and
You're gonna get like a whole gift package.
yeah.
I get
Maybe this might start a new what's the word?
trend.
Yeah, new trend.
Yeah, maybe. All right, Spilly, thanks, dude.
For sure. Thank you guys for having me. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, that was fun, man.
Absolutely.
I really enjoyed hearing particular about the family stuff, man. And
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're very well spoken. You're an old soul, and dude, just keep being a good human being. You got some really good character traits and qualities about you, and that came from your wonderful family
Yeah,
that I
bro.
met.
Only disease that when you treat it, you come out better than you were before, you know? Fucking, what's it called? Diabetes or cancer. When you treat that, because you can't cure it, when you treat that, you can only hope to get just as healthy as you were or maybe close to it. But they say when you treat addiction, alcoholism, you come out healthier, better than you were before.
it's a good point.
Only disease that does that. So,
Good
Facts.
point.
yep.
All right, let me wrap this up. Thanks, boys. All right, that is it for this episode of Real Recovery Talk. Thank you for tuning in. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, it's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message, right, Ben?
That is correct.
That is it. We will see y'all later.